By the way, you be careful what you say now, because these guys, they're filming
I
everything.
know!
King, country, and Commonwealth.
When Queen Camilla leaned in to have a quiet word with Princess Charlotte, she had no idea Catherine was watching from nearby. And what unfolded in the moments that followed would shift everything. It began like countless other springtime weekends on the royal calendar, meticulously scheduled, packed with formalities, and set against Windsor's historic backdrop. But something about this particular occasion unsettled Princess Catherine. Over the years, she'd learned to rely on her gut, especially where her children were concerned. That morning, Charlotte had been unusually quiet, not sullen or upset, just withdrawn, as if she hoped to go unnoticed, and that simply wasn't her. The royals had gathered at Windsor Castle for an intimate luncheon, celebrating one of Queen Camilla's recent philanthropic projects. While these events weren't uncommon, they brought together multiple branches of the family under a single roof. Camilla's circle, Catherine's kin, and various extended royals who didn't always mesh. Catherine handled these gatherings with grace, but she stayed alert. Prince William could afford to relax into his role, but Catherine observed everything. That day, Charlotte was asked to join the younger cousins in one of the side salons. It was formal enough, but relaxed by royal measures. The children were expected to engage in light conversation and enjoy their tea while the adults mingled. Catherine had guided Charlotte to her seat, kissed her forehead, and stepped out, casting one final glance. Nothing seemed amiss, at least not then. Roughly 45 minutes into the luncheon, Catherine was mid-conversation with a senior courtier when she caught sight of Charlotte moving past an open doorway across the corridor. She wasn't in tears, but her face had gone pale. Her lips pressed tight, her expression unreadable. Catherine paused, excused herself, and followed. She found Charlotte alone by a quiet service entrance, hands folded, eyes fixed on the floor. "What's the matter, love?" Catherine asked softly. Charlotte hesitated. "It's nothing, Mummy." But Catherine knelt beside her. "Darling, I can tell," Charlotte whispered. "Granny Camilla said I was being too loud. She told me not to speak unless I was spoken to." Catherine blinked. "When did she say that?" "When I told Louis the answer during our game," Charlotte said. "We were guessing animals." She seemed upset. Catherine didn't respond immediately. She pulled her daughter into a steady, reassuring embrace. On the outside, she stayed composed, but internally a switch flipped. She had always attempted civility with Camilla, even when it felt strained. Camilla believed in tradition, in decorum, and while she often cloaked it in charm, her tone could betray a different intent. Still, Catherine had believed Camilla would never direct such condescension toward her children. She had been wrong. Later that afternoon, as the family strolled through the gardens, Catherine kept a close eye on everything. Camilla walked ahead beside Charles, chatting breezily as though no tension lingered. But Catherine was watching differently now. It wasn't just the earlier remark, it was the way Charlotte had withdrawn, had hidden. Inside again during refreshments, Charlotte reached for a second scone. Camilla, half smiling, remarked, "Maybe one is enough, sweetheart. We mustn't be greedy." There it was, again. Small, cutting remarks that added up. Not cruel in isolation, but together they formed a pattern. Catherine said nothing aloud. She didn't cause scenes. Her quiet had always been intentional, but this time it wasn't going to be silence for much longer. William hadn't picked up on it yet. He had been occupied with Charles and royal aides. But that night at Adelaide Cottage, Catherine planned to bring it up. Before she could, another moment unfolded. Catherine had never expected royal life to be simple. She accepted the obligations, the optics, the invisible weight of the crown. But one thing she never tolerated, and never would, was anyone in the family making her children feel small. After tea was cleared, the adults gathered in the sitting room off the main hall. The children were allowed in briefly before heading upstairs with their nannies. Charlotte sat by the fireplace leafing through a book. Camilla entered with a glass of water, laughing with an aide. She gave the children a perfunctory smile and turned back to the adults. Then Charlotte asked politely, "May I play the piano for a little while?" Camilla glanced back. "The piano?" "Yes," Charlotte nodded. "Quietly." Camilla sipped her glass and responded, "That's not necessary, darling. Let the adults enjoy the quiet. Why not sit nicely like a proper young lady? It wasn't loud, it wasn't cruel, but it was sharp. Charlotte's cheeks flushed. She gently shut her book and folded her hands. Catherine, nearby speaking with Lady Lansdowne, heard it clearly. Her eyes moved from Charlotte to Camilla. She didn't speak, but her gaze lingered long enough. Camilla noticed. The energy in the room shifted, conversations resumed, but something had changed. Back at home, Catherine tucked Charlotte in herself. William was finishing work. George was asleep. "Did something upset you today?" she asked. Charlotte hesitated. "A little, but I'm okay." "You don't have to be okay all the time," Catherine said gently. Charlotte whispered, "Granny Camilla doesn't like it when I talk too much." There it was, clear, honest. Catherine kissed her forehead. "You were perfectly polite." When she left the room, William looked up. "Everything all right?" "She's trying to be," Catherine replied. She told him everything, not with fury but with purpose. The comments, the looks, the repeated dismissals. William's jaw tightened. "This isn't something we ignore," she said. "I agree," he replied, "but we handle it carefully." The next day, Catherine said Charlotte would miss the garden charity event Camilla had arranged. She cited a small cold, but the truth was she didn't want her daughter in that setting again. Word reached Camilla. She said little, but reportedly muttered, "Perhaps too fragile for a bit of dirt." Catherine heard that too. The incident may have faded, if not for what occurred at Highgrove the following weekend. It was meant to be a quiet family dinner at Highgrove. An evening Charles had arranged to reconnect, relax and discuss the coming royal tour. Nothing official, just time together. Catherine arrived with William and the children, planning only to have Charlotte briefly greet her grandfather before heading to bed. As they entered the drawing room, Camilla was already seated by the fire, a glass of wine in hand. She looked up, barely. Charlotte stepped forward with a polite smile and said, "Good evening, Granny." Camilla didn't smile back. Instead, she replied dryly, "Are you sure you're not too tired to be here?" The words hung in the air, light in volume but unmistakably loaded. Everyone heard them. Catherine's expression didn't change, but the warmth faded from her face. She turned to her daughter and said gently, "Why don't you give Grandpa a goodnight hug and then go up with Anna?" Charlotte looked to her mother, uncertain. Catherine nodded. The young girl walked to Charles, embraced him, then left the room quietly with the nanny. As the door clicked shut behind her, a silence settled over the room. Camilla leaned back and muttered, "She's very sensitive, isn't she?" William froze. Charles shifted in his chair, visibly uncomfortable, but it was Catherine who stepped forward, each word measured, calm but firm. "No, she's not overly sensitive. She's a child, and she deserves to be spoken to with kindness." Camilla lifted an eyebrow. "I didn't mean anything by it. I was simply surprised she's still awake. It's not something to make a fuss over." Catherine didn't flinch. "It's not just tonight. It's been happening again and again. I've heard what's been said to her, and so has she." The room cooled. Charles opened his mouth to intervene. "Darling, perhaps this isn't..." But Catherine cut in, her tone unwavering. "If it had been a single comment, we'd move on. But it isn't one. It's a pattern, and I won't stand by while my daughter is diminished." Camilla turned to William, expecting him to diffuse things. He didn't. His silence was deliberate. Catherine continued, "I've worked hard to maintain peace because it's what's expected of me. I've let go of moments that felt off, but this is different. This is about Charlotte, and no one, no matter their role, gets to chip away at her spirit." Camilla placed her glass down, now leaning in. "You're taking this too seriously. Children are resilient. They forget." Catherine's voice remained steady. "Number. They remember how they're treated, especially by those who are meant to protect them." There was no drama, no raised voice, but the conviction in her words cut deeper than any outburst. William finally spoke. "We're asking for something basic, respect. Charlotte hasn't done anything wrong. She's just being herself. That shouldn't be an issue." Camilla glanced at Charles. He remained silent. He understood what this meant. Catherine had drawn a line, and she wasn't moving it. Moments later, she left the room. William followed soon after. Upstairs, Catherine sat on the edge of Charlotte's bed. This time, she didn't need to ask what was wrong. She simply held her daughter's hand. "You didn't do anything wrong," she whispered. You were kind. You were respectful. That's all I ever want from you." Charlotte looked up. "I tried to be." "You don't have to try to be perfect," Catherine said. "You just have to be you." Downstairs, Charles tried to change the subject. Camilla didn't respond much after that. She didn't apologise, but she didn't challenge Catherine again either. Later that night at Adelaide Cottage, Catherine and William debriefed privately. "She doesn't need to like me," Catherine said, "but she will treat Charlotte with dignity. That's non-negotiable." "She will," William agreed, "because we're not letting this go on." The days that followed were civil, but colder. The next family event was Charlotte's recital at Lambrook. Catherine kept the guest list close, only inviting immediate family. Camilla was not included. The palace described it as a scheduling conflict, but insiders understood the meaning. Publicly, the royal image remained polished. Photographers captured smiling faces, press releases emphasised harmony. But within palace walls, a change had occurred. Camilla attended major events, but no longer hovered near Charlotte. She said nothing. No comments on tone, manners, appetite or voice. It wasn't an apology, but it was space. Catherine had laid down a boundary. And even in a monarchy built on tradition and hierarchy, some boundaries weren't meant to be crossed without consequences. Still, things weren't truly resolved. Camilla may have stepped back, but she hadn't forgotten. And when summer brought the family north to Balmoral, everything would be tested again. What would you have done in Catherine's place? Was Camilla simply upholding old-school standards, or did she cross a line no royal title can excuse? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, share and subscribe for more behind-the-scenes royal insights.